can play music for the baby in any room.
Can you play Ride the Lightning by Metallica?
What's up, everyone? DJ Nubis
And DJ Neko.
here with you on the Middletown Radio podcast with another edition of the Cultureverse Mindset, where we sit down and either react or talk about pop culture, music, movies, you name it. We talk about
Good
it.
shit.
Yeah. So today, a couple of videos we're going to kind of go over and react to are ones I wanted to check out.
We're going to react to Philip Rivers at 44 returning to the NFL.
No, but that's certainly an interesting topic.
You know, we've always, as Bronco fans, we've always loved when we had that rivalry with Rivers when he was the Chargers quarterback for how many years. And he is so funny when he gets all wound up.
Well,
And-
it was like comic gold with him and Jay Cutler. It just was ridiculous.
But you know what? Me personally, God bless him. I am the same age as him, and if he is in the shape that he can go back out
Well,
there.
how old is Flacco? Like 46?
No, he's younger, young, like a couple years younger than me. He's like 42. But like, if you remember though, Rivers retired in 2020, and he retired with the Colts, and they brought him back. They said, listen, Uncle Rico, we need you to get back out there.
Well, they lost Daniel Jones. You know, he was playing well for them.
And isn't Ripien, doesn't he have like a knee injury or something?
Oh, yeah,
too?
he's done for the year.
So both their quarterbacks, their guys, they're out. And Rivers, I've been listening constantly to these press conferences and people in the news talking about it, but it just seemed like so natural. They called him up and he said, you know what, let me come out, let me see if I can still throw that football. And the coaches were like, yeah, he's still throwing really good. And you know, and then they said, okay, let's make this official. And he said, okay, let's make it official.
Well, I mean, half of the year is over, so he's got enough rest. You know, it's just a matter of keeping him upright, but so far, I mean, the Colts, you know.
He was never super mobile, right? Like as in the past.
He didn't need to be really, but
that's his thing. Like he's not super fast. He's not a rushing quarterback. He's not a super mobile quarterback. They need to protect him. If I sleep wrong on my shoulder, I'm out
it's
for
clear
a week.
though that the Colts, of course, they're trying to make a run for the playoffs. I mean, they were leading their division before Daniel Jones went down. So now they need someone to try to help them continue that run, because otherwise their whole season's screwed.
Listen, and I'm okay with this. If Philip Rivers comes in and takes the Colts to the Super Bowl, I really am okay with that.
Us.
I know it's us, but if they beat us, that's the only team that I'm okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, what a great story that would be. He and his 11 kids. He's a grandfather. He has a granddaughter, I believe. He was coaching high school football, and good for him. He's been with his wife since 2001. They got married.
Damn, look at you. You're a fucking sleuth.
I'm the Philip Rivers whisperer, I guess. But like, so I was thinking about this. He married his wife in 2001. They have like 10, 11 kids. I can't remember. And in my head, all I'm thinking is this poor woman has either been pregnant or breastfeeding her entire life. They've got adult children, and then they have children that are still little. Like, and I'm like, oh, God bless her. But they're very religious, and overall, I know Philip Rivers is kind of silly, but we know he's an okay guy, and you want the best for him.
Yeah. But our videos are more movie related. So
Okay.
the first one I've got is called 9 Haunting Made-for-TV Horrors You'll Never Forget.
Made for TV horrors?
Yeah, so I think of a lot
So
of times.
mini-series?
Could be like Salem's Lot, could be Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, which is a movie I really like. There's also The Car, Devil Dog, The Hound of Hell. These were all movies that were made for TV that are quite eerie and creepy.
And they're kind of are they getting like a resurgence or?
Some people are noticing, but I don't know if these are included in his list. This is why I kind of wanted to react and see if there's anything I've missed that they might point out to me and say, hey, you need to check this out.
Oh, so let's see if we need to check this out.
Yeah, so here we go. Let's
right.
check it out.
Horror didn't announce itself. It slipped in after the evening news, flickering through living rooms like a half-remembered dream. In the 1970s and early 80s, terror arrived not in theaters, but on television screens, where suburban calm met something strange,
Oh, yeah, there
unseen,
used to
and
be,
unforgettable.
like,
Tonight, we're descending into the
Like
glow
movie
of
of the
cathode
week,
nightmares
or
to uncover
that's
9
where
creepy
Roots
Ooh,
was.
Duel.
TV movies
Yep,
that still haunt your
Spielberg.
That's
dreams.
right.
There's The Car.
Years before Christine gave us a killer car, the
There
car
you
from
go.
1977 roared across television screens with a demonic precision.
Should
Out of
be
the
much
shimmer of
higher,
heat
though.
comes a black shape, a customized Lincoln Continental. Its windows tinted to obsidian, its
Nice.
horn blaring like the devil's laughter. There's no driver, no explanation, only a machine with murder in its engine and malice in its
I
design.
think I did a
James
vintage
Brolin
call
plays
with
Sheriff
Thrive
Wade
Squad
Parent,
on this
a
one.
man caught between rational law and supernatural chaos. When the car begins mowing down cyclists, crashing through funerals, and tearing through houses
guy's
like
face,
paper,
I'm sorry.
reason falters. Elliot Silverstein's direction is deliberate and eerie, using the wide Utah landscapes not for freedom but for isolation. The desert becomes a trap. No walls, no shelter, nowhere to hide from the roar of approaching death. There's a satanic simplicity to the car. It asks what happens when evil doesn't wear a face, when it moves on wheels instead of wings. In an age obsessed with machines, this one felt prophetic. A mechanical
Yeah.
demon fueled by human arrogance. When the headlights crest the ridge, the ground trembles. The sound isn't thunder. It's something older,
And it's
something
harder
coming
to find
straight for
these
you.
made-for-TV movies and miniseries.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was saying it's harder now to find these made-for-TV movies and miniseries. We have a lot of streaming services, but these older things that we, in the 80s and the 70s, and even some of the stuff like, the Christmas specials, the things that were on TV, like they weren't really well preserved.
For the most part, they've gotten a lot better. Like I know that. So you remember when I wanted that movie called The Bermuda Deaths?
Yes.
And so for a long time, you could not get that. I remember I've been telling the guys this when we did a review for a while back that, probably in the mid 2000s, they had a petition to have it put to DVD. So I signed it back then, and then they did, and then they actually notified me when it was available.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you think like Vinegar Syndrome and Severin? Because I've noticed with them when things become like public domain or whatever, they start reprinting things.
Mhm.
And do you think that the prevalence of those companies, because they have that access and they have like such a following, that's getting these movies that are out of print back into people's hands, because they're putting it out there saying, okay, well, we're going to do like 500 reprints of this movie. Do you think that's really helping and driving people to find these like hidden gems?
Probably. Also, it helps that I know that like Lloyd Kaufman of Troma, he bought a lot of movies that weren't really owned by Troma initially, but he bought them up because of that very fact. He wanted to make sure that they didn't get lost in the sauce and unable to be found anymore. So now he puts them out. So like a lot of that shit ends up on Tubi. And so that's cool because
That is cool.
I'll watch a movie that I know wasn't done by Troma, but once their logo comes up, it tells me that Lloyd went and got the rights to it and bought it.
You're like, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it's nice that Lloyd is kind of looking out for a lot of these old treasure trove of movies that people tend to forget or never seen.
It's like this with horror movies and also with like westerns. They've kind of like, because you remember it would always be like Sunday afternoon western, or they made so
Martial
many
arts.
Yeah, the martial arts, the kung fu, and they made them. They were entertainment, but then they just kind of have been sitting in some attic or basement and they haven't been re-released. And I know one thing that you and I need to do, and I was going to take this on, was we have a lot of VHSs that are never been put into DVD, right? Like we know that they were released as VHSs. We need to get a new VHS player
Converter.
so I can convert it to digital, so we have it, like we can just watch it if we want to. That's something that I think about a lot. Like we forget how many times physical media, like in our lives especially, has changed. We had nothing, and then we had VHS, and then we had Laserdisc, and then we had Divid and DVD and Blu-ray and HD DVD.
Laserdisc.
Yeah, right? Like we had all this stuff, and they only chose, like, and every time it's like VHS was king for up until early 2000s. People were still doing VHS in the early 2000s, even though there was DVD. But things got missed. Things did not get converted. So we have VHSs that, they're not digital. And I would love, and I will, and I promise I will, especially after we get our new computers and we find a beautiful working VHS, I will sit down, because it's a process. You can't just be like, because you're taking physical media, you have to actually put it onto the screen.
But like I said, also, they've been getting better with that. So a lot of stuff we'd have to look into, because a lot of the stuff that we thought was never going to be on DVD or Blu-ray are actually, because like you said, Vinegar Syndrome, Umbrella, Severin, they're all starting to kind of like go and find all these movies and finally get them bought and put out and repackaged and stuff. So
remember, I wanted the DVD of Sidekicks, and it was,
and the one we have still isn't like a
it's
legit
not a
printing.
real legit DVD
Right.
of Sidekicks, and I'm like, this is insane.
It's the only one you can get though. Until I think they did finally put it out.
I'm sure. I hope they did. Hey, maybe Vinegar Syndrome did. All right, number 8. Go for it. Sorry, I talked too
In
much.
The Victim, 1972, a storm rolls over the countryside.
Yeah, I don't know this one.
With
so
it
I'll
comes a
write
sense
this
of
down.
wrongness. Elizabeth Montgomery, known for her poise and grace, drives through sheets of
From
rain to her
Bewitched,
sister's
Elizabeth
secluded home
Montgomery?
after a strange,
the-
desperate phone
She
call.
looks familiar too.
When she
that lady.
arrives, the lights are on. The doors are unlocked, but her sister is gone. Produced by Aaron Spelling and directed by Herschel Doherty,
Aaron
this
Spelling,
ABC
wow.
thriller is built on silence and suggestion. There are no musical cues, no frantic pacing,
Huh.
only the sound of rain, the creak of wood, and the rhythm of a
Definitely,
frightened woman's
Yeah.
breath.
Bewitched.
Montgomery
You
You got
carries
that
the
one. You
entire
got that
film
one
with
written
near
down, because
wordless
I love
intensity.
Elizabeth
Her
Montgomery.
presence both fragile and determined as she searches through rooms that feel increasingly unfamiliar. The Victim is television minimalism at its most effective. One actor, one location, one night. The house becomes its own character, watchful,
kinda
suffocating,
cool.
and complicit. Every shadow could conceal movement, Every reflection could blink back. What makes it enduring is its restraint. In an era when most horror demanded spectacle, the victim trusted the power of suggestion. It's a story about fear distilled to its essence. A door you shouldn't open, a question you shouldn't ask, and a silence that listens. By dawn, the storm has passed, but something in the house is still waiting for her to notice.
That's interesting. Like, I know nothing about that movie.
Me either.
In Crowhaven Farm, 1970, evil doesn't descend
Never
from the
heard of
sky.
this one either.
It seeps from the ground. When Hope Lang and Paul Burke inherit a secluded New England farmhouse, it feels like fortune smiling. But as they settle in, the land begins to whisper,
This
and
is
the
like a
past
TV
begins to
movie?
stir.
Yeah.
The locals are friendly, their smiles rehearsed,
Oh, this
their
looks
eyes
like
a little too
Rosemary's
knowing.
Baby.
Children chant songs that sound like confessions. The air feels charged as though centuries of guilt still cling to every tree. Directed by Walter Grauman and produced by Aaron Spelling, Crowhaven
Another Aaron
Farm stands
Spelling.
as one
Aaron
of
Spelling is
television's
king of
earliest
TV.
forays into folk horror.
A bite?
A genre defined not by ghosts or monsters, but by time itself. Here, the evil is cyclical, inherited, buried in the roots of the earth and the bloodlines
Oh,
of the living.
wow.
As the story unfolds, Langa's character begins to experience vivid memories that are not her own. Flashes of a life lived long ago, a betrayal that still demands repayment. There are no jump scares, no overt demons, just a slow,
You would
feverish
like this.
unraveling.
Mhm.
The farm becomes a living organism, patient and vengeful. Crowhaven Farm remains haunting because it feels like a forgotten sermon, a warning about what happens when the past decides it isn't finished.
So you
Some
like
homes
these,
are built for the living, others for the remembered.
6.
In Don't Go to Sleep, 1982,
I've
grief
heard of
moves
this
into a
one.
family's new home and quietly makes itself at home. A mother, a father, a grandmother, and 2 children, each trying to rebuild after tragedy. But when the youngest daughter begins speaking to her dead sister, something unseen starts rearranging the furniture of their lives. Directed by Richard Lang and written by Ned Wynn, this ABC television movie doesn't rely on jump scares or gore.
He's from
Its
Poltergeist,
horror
I
is
think.
domestic,
Is he?
patient, almost
think
polite.
so.
Valerie Harper and Dennis Weaver ground the story
It
with
is
brittle
Valerie
realism,
Harper.
while Ruth Gordon's eccentric
Write this
charm
one
adds a
down,
note
too.
of unease. Every scene feels too bright, too normal, and that daylight becomes the film's cruelest trick. The tension builds not through what you see, but through what the family refuses to confront: guilt, resentment, and the unspeakable weight of loss. The haunting feels psychological, as though the spirit feeding on them might not be a ghost at all, but grief itself given form. When the accidents begin, they seem arbitrary. When they end, they feel inevitable. Don't Go to Sleep endures because it understands a terrible truth. Some hauntings don't come from the afterlife. They come from memory replaying itself until someone finally
She looks like
breaks.
she just went crazy.
I
And when the house
know.
goes quiet,
Well, this
listen
also,
closely. You might still hear
they're
a
kind of
child
playing
whispering your
on
name.
like this house is like a spirit haven.
Hmm.
Because you saw it was like back in the
In
witches.
Bad
and
Ronald,
stuff.
1974, Suburbia
Nope, never
hides a
heard of it.
secret so unnerving it feels like an urban legend whispered after dark.
Why
Scott
does he
Jacoby
look like,
stars as Ronald Wilby, a socially awkward teenager who accidentally kills a neighborhood girl. Terrified and
Oh.
manipulated by his overprotective mother, he retreats into the walls of their home, a hidden room sealed behind plaster and lies. When she dies
Ooh.
unexpectedly, a new family moves in, unaware that the boy is still there, listening through vents, watching through pinholes, and building
Wait,
his
his
own
mother
world in the
left him
dark.
there?
Directed by
I
Buzz
guess.
Kulik, this ABC television film trades gore for claustrophobia. The camera lingers on quiet
They've
domestic
done
spaces,
movies similar to this
staircases,
afterwards, so
bedrooms,
that's probably why
hallways,
it doesn't get
transforming
remembered
them into
by much.
corridors of dread. What makes Bad Ronald so haunting is its plausibility. The idea that someone could be living inches away, unseen, yet completely consumed by your life, is pure
Gary Busey
nightmare
did a
fuel.
movie like
Beneath
this
the
a little
tension
bit.
lies
Oh, yeah?
tragedy.
He was in the
Ronald
attic.
isn't a
though.
monster at first. He's a casualty of neglect, loneliness, and delusion. But as isolation rots into madness, the line between observer and predator disappears. When it first aired, Bad Ronald unnerved a generation. Decades later, it still crawls under the skin.
Now
Because
we
it
gotta
asks
see
one
Bad
simple
Ronald.
question: what would you do if your
Got the
walls
list.
remember you?
This guy did a good homework.
Stuff that I've never heard of. Yeah, totally.
In Dark Night of the Scarecrow,
Now, this
1981,
one I know, of
vengeance
course.
You know
doesn't
this
rise from the
one.
grave. It grows from the soil. In a nameless southern
I've seen
town,
this one too.
cruelty
Yeah,
hides
it's beautiful.
behind Sunday smiles and picket fences. When a gentle, childlike man named Bubba, played with heartbreaking sincerity by Larry Drake, is falsely accused of harming a child, 4 men hunt him down and kill him in cold blood. They bury their sin under laughter and lies. But the wind in the corn begins to whisper differently. Directed by Frank DeFelita from J.D. Feigelson screenplay, this CBS film took the shape of a morality tale told through husks and hay. Charles
So, do
Durning,
you remember seeing
unforgettable
these
as
on
the
TV
venomous
when you were
postman.
younger?
Oh, this one I do. And the same with the car. That's why I remembered him for so long.
There was one movie that I don't know if you've ever like figured it out, but you said that there was like a specific scene that you remember.
Yep, that one
and
I
you still
have not.
figured it out.
Nope.
God. So what was that scene? Like describe
All
it.
I
Maybe.
can remember is the very end, a short-haired woman screaming, and she has a butcher knife, and there's blood everywhere. And then, like, a lot of people kept thinking I was confusing it with Suspiria, but that's not it.
No,
because-
you're like, I know Suspiria.
yeah.
Like,
So, like, but at the credits, when it goes black and it's running, you hear like these demonic voices saying, next time we're going to use, like, basically their impression was, next time we're going to make the victim the woman. So in this case, I guess they were possessing the woman and using her as a kill men or whatever. But that was the impression I got. But that's all I ever remember. But nobody can seem to find out what that movie is, because the key is those credit scenes and what the demons are saying or the ghosts are saying throughout the credits. Because outside of that, no idea.
Personifies the self-righteous rot of small-town justice. One by one, the guilty meet their ends, but the fear comes not from what they see, it's from what they think they see. A scarecrow standing where none should be, a presence watching from the fields. The harvest itself seems to wait. What makes Dark Night of the Scarecrow so enduring isn't gore or spectacle, but atmosphere. That cold, creeping dread of conscience made flesh. It's about guilt that germinates. Shame that
and they
takes
got
root.
like a
And
secret to
punishment that
hide.
blooms quietly under a blood-red sky. Sometimes the earth keeps score, and
Yeah,
sometimes
that
it settles the
mailman,
debt itself.
great actor. He was a bad dude in that one. Killed the mother too.
In
Oof.
Duel, 1971, the
There
open
you go.
road becomes a trap with no exit. What begins as an ordinary drive through the California desert turns into a
showed the
relentless
cat- this
nightmare
the
when
cat for the
traveling
first time
salesman
not too
David
long ago.
Mann, played by Dennis Weaver, passes a slow-moving truck. That small act of impatience awakens something primal. The massive, rust-eaten semi begins to follow him, first casually, then obsessively, then with unmistakable intent. Directed by a 25-year-old Steven Spielberg and written by Richard
Wow.
Matheson, Duel is lean, precise, and merciless. There is no dialogue with the pursuer, no reason for the chase. Only an ancient hostility given mechanical form. Spielberg
Road
shoots the truck
rage.
like a living thing.
Uh-huh.
Low angles make it seem carnivorous, the camera trembling as it looms into view. The desert sun turns asphalt into a mirage, the heat waves distorting the line between reality
That is a
and
good shot.
hallucination. What makes Duel extraordinary is its simplicity. There's no monster, no gore, only a machine stripped of humanity, yet radiating pure malice. The film aired as part of ABC's Movie of the Week, but felt cinematic, mythic
It
even.
did.
The story of a man hunted by his own creation, by progress itself. By the time the final confrontation ends, the silence feels like judgment, because evil doesn't always need a face. Sometimes it just needs an engine.
Hey.
True words.
In The Night Stalker, 1972, the neon city of
Okay, I
Las
do know
Vegas
this.
pulses
I've
with
heard of
noise
this, I
and
don't
greed
know.
and late-night laughter.
well, they
a
made
perfect
a
hunting ground for something that doesn't belong. Beneath the
series
glitz,
based
bodies
on it.
begin to turn up, drained of blood. The police are baffled.
Oh,
The
drained
press
of
is
blood.
restless.
I wonder what
And
that
only
could
one
be.
man dares to suggest the truth. A vampire walks the strip. That man is Carl Kolchak, a cynical, chain-smoking reporter played with manic
Actually,
charm by Darren
Did a new
McGavin.
one with Stuart
Directed by
Townsend playing
John Llewellyn
Kolchak.
Moxie.
Really?
Written by Richard
Yeah, but it was
Matheson.
so
and
short-lived,
produced
which
by
is
Dan
disappointing
Curtis.
because I
This
was really
ABC
into it when
movie
it came
fused
out.
pulp energy
in the
with
early
newsroom
2000s.
realism. Kolchak's narration, part confession, part documentation,
I forget
gives the
who.
story the feel of a found artifact.
It's
A diary of
Dwayne Wade's
disbelief.
wife
The
was the
horror isn't just
opposite one working
supernatural,
with
it's
him in that film
systemic.
for that series.
Bureaucracy hides the truth because monsters are bad
I
for
want to see
tourism.
that.
What made The Night Stalker revolutionary was its credibility. It treated
Might
the
be able to find
vampire
it
myth as
somewhere.
headline news, blending noir
What's
cynicism with gothic terror. The result was magnetic, a broadcast that terrified 30 million viewers and redefined television horror. Kolchak's battle wasn't just with a creature, it was with the institutions that refused to believe him. And when the city lights flicker, you can almost hear his typewriter clacking in the dark, documenting the night the world looked away.
Number one,
What's his number one? I want to know.
the Devil Dog.
And finally, one television nightmare that
Oh,
proved horror could be
of course.
beautiful
Yeah.
and unforgettable.
I didn't know
In
this was a
Salem's
television
Lot,
movie.
1979, the American dream of small-town life
There was
rots
like a
quietly from the
miniseries
inside.
for- I
didn't
Directed
know
by
that.
Tobe Hooper and adapted from Stephen King's novel, this two-part CBS miniseries feels less like television and more like a gothic symphony in flickering blue light. David Soul stars as a writer returning to his main hometown, a place of church bells, barbershops,
Where
and restless shadows.
everything happens
But beneath
with
that
Stephen
postcard
King
calm
in
lies
Maine.
infection.
Yeah.
The town's newest
I've
resident,
never
the
been to
elegantly
Maine,
sinister
and I
James
feel like
Mason,
we need to
brings
go to
with him
Maine
an
to see,
ancient evil that
like,
seeps through
is it
locked
really
doors
this
and
fucked
sleeping
up?
windows. People vanish, dogs go silent, and curtains
The
seem to
remake
breathe
of
in
this
the
was
night. Hooper shoots the
horrible.
ordinary as if
Really?
it were haunted. Clotheslines swaying in still air. Streetlights flickering like dying candles.
It's like, why do you
When the
bother
vampires
if you're
finally
not going
appear,
to do
they're
it
pale,
justice? Like,
feral,
it's
You're not
just,
going to go like
creatures
all
that
out.
look like
Yeah.
they've been waiting since the dawn of
Wow,
time
that's
for
pretty
television to
scary
find
for a
them.
TV
Salem's Lot
movie.
changed
Hell
what
yeah.
TV horror could be. It wasn't loud or cheap. It was patient,
dude, that whole like
beautiful,
little
and
kid like
unbearably eerie.
scratching
A
out the
meditation on
window. Dude, I
decay,
hated
faith,
that.
and the terror of home turning unfamiliar. Even now, when
When
the
I was
night
a
hums
young
just
teenager
right,
when I watched
you
this
might
shit,
swear
that's
you hear a
scary as
tapping on the
fuck.
window. Polite, insistent, and hungry.
Was that
These
before
weren't just
the
movies, they
national
were
anthem
midnight
went off at
transmissions.
midnight?
No,
Messages
this,
from
this
another
came
time
out
still flickering in
afterwards.
the dark.
So
These 9 films prove that horror doesn't need spectacle to scar the imagination. They were haunting, dreamlike, and achingly human, reminding us that the most terrifying ghosts are the ones just beyond the lamplight. If you enjoyed this descent into vintage terror, like,
I
subscribe,
enjoyed
and
it.
share the TV movie that still haunts your dreams. You've been
Oh,
watching
I like
Silver
her
Shivers,
double
where horror never dies.
ovens.
It just
I
gets
love
remastered.
vintage everything
There was
though.
a time when
thanks, buddy. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I my first reaction is I knew 3 movies out of 9. So
hmm
so
So yeah, we still got 4 we can check out at some
I
point.
mean, for real, like 4 of them look.
And we might even get more because the next topic is 21 exploitation films from the 70s that push the limits. So I'm going to guess that maybe Salo might be on there.
I hated Salo.
And there's another one called The Beast, which is insanely crazy. It's a French movie, but we'll see what they have to say as we dive into this one.
Okay.
70s were a decade when cinema didn't just flirt with controversy. It slammed the door open, stomped inside, and dared you to look away. These weren't safe movies made for polite company. They were raw, unruly, and sometimes downright
Is this the
dangerous.
same guy
Studio
who made
bosses
it?
couldn't control them, censors
I don't
tried to
think so.
kill them, and
Yeah,
audiences
he's
lined
using
up
like
anyway.
the same
So
AI
how far could a
voice.
film really go before it crossed the line? You're about to find out, and some of these will still make your jaw drop. Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS,
I've seen that.
1975. Few
I haven't, but
exploitation films from the 70s carry the same notorious
remember,
reputation
though,
as Ilsa,
from,
She-Wolf of the SS. Shot quickly on leftover
that
sets from the TV
Ed
sitcom
Gein
Hogan's
Mhm.
Heroes.
miniseries
This
that we
low-budget
watched, like
Canadian
Ilsa.
production was aimed
Yeah,
directly
apparently
at
she's
the
a
US
real figure,
grindhouse
but
market, and it hit like a grenade. Diane
she's been
Thorne
used a
plays
lot as
Ilsa,
like
a brutal camp commandant obsessed with
focal
proving
point
women
of a
could
lot of
endure
Nazi
more pain than
exploitation
men.
films.
The result is a string of twisted experiments and ruthless punishment for anyone who crosses her. Made for about $150,000, it exploded in drive-ins and midnight screenings, pulling in
Oh,
millions.
so okay,
despite
so some of
being
these went to drive-ins. All right.
Oh yeah. You wouldn't be surprised at all. Like some of this stuff. That's why, like when Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino did their Grindhouse double feature, they did a lot of this stuff with trailers and stuff like that based around Isla and stuff like that. They were calling back to a lot of that.
banned in countries like Australia, Germany, and New Zealand. Critics
that
shredded
Dodo?
it, calling it
Probably.
tasteless and grotesque. Some of the cast and crew even tried to have their names removed from the credits after release. Of course, the backlash only made audiences hungrier to see it. The controversy turned Ilsa into a brand, spawning sequels and cementing its place in grindhouse history. Whether you see it as a
Grindhouse,
sick
there you go.
fantasy or a raw time capsule of 70s boundary-pushing cinema, one thing's certain, it's impossible to forget once you've seen it. The Last House on the Left, 1972,
Okay, I know
Wes
that one.
Craven's
Mhm.
first film, didn't just push boundaries, it bulldozed them. The Last House on the Left follows two teenage girls headed to a concert who cross paths with a gang of escaped convicts. What starts as a kidnapping spirals into
So
a
this is
harrowing
the
ordeal
original.
that
Is it just hard to find it with better quality, or
No. I don't know. His footage could be just something he drew from the internet, but they put this onto like Blu-ray and stuff now, so you can see this. And in fact, even the quality on Tubi or whatever is better than this.
yeah, it's like
This one's very grainy.
yeah.
shocked audiences and censors alike. The real sting comes when the tables turn and the parents of one victim serve up their own brand of justice. Made for around $90,000, this raw, grainy
bet you
feature
I
was
Spit on Your
marketed with the
Grave
infamous
to be in
line,
there.
"To avoid fainting, keep repeating, it's only a movie." In the UK, it was outright banned in 1974, dragged into the video nasties panic years later, and stayed banned well into the 2000s. Early screenings reportedly caused fainting, walkouts, and even
Oh, they
illness.
said that about
Craven
The
later
Exorcist,
admitted he
too.
never expected such outrage, but he tapped into something primal. Without polished effects or big budget
I don't know
gloss,
much
the
about
film's
this
gritty
movie.
realism made
So
it feel like
what
something you
was-
weren't supposed to see.
What made it so scary? Like, what was the?
Well, it's a couple of things. It was not so much scary as that it was a lot of rape. And
Oh, okay.
it was very like they weren't afraid to shy away from that stuff. So like the girl that they mentioned, the one girl, she was raped and killed. And then her parents found out that the killers ended up showing up their house trying to like either catch their breath or get out of the rain or something. But they realized when one of them was wearing a necklace from their daughter, they ended up doing their own vigilante justice on them by killing them. So,
Oh, wow.
so it plays a little like I Spit. Only I Spit, the girl herself is doing the revenge, but this was the parents doing it. But I remember like I can't really even watch those early scenes because I don't like,
Yeah, I don't like
Violence
that
on-
either. Yeah.
you know, that's just not something I'm cool with. But I mean, I don't hate the directors for doing it because I think
Because they're trying to get that kind of reaction.
yeah, they want the shock and awe. They want you to make it feel visceral when you see it, so you know how the parents are feeling. That's what you're trying to convey, like the grief and the anger that they would have.
Love it or hate it, it became a blueprint for revenge thrillers, and a reminder that horror can hit hardest when it feels all too real. I Spit on Your Grave, 1978.
You
When I
just
Spit on
said
Your
that
Grave
one.
landed in theaters, it was met with disgust, protests, and scathing reviews. Camille Keaton plays a young writer who retreats to a rural cabin to work, only to be attacked and left for dead.
Now, the one cool thing is I don't remember if you watched a doc that I did with the director of this, but the female actress, like, so the guy on the left here, the dark shirt,
Yeah.
so they obviously raped, like it's a big thing about rape and abusing her multiple times before she ends up killing them. But he did the coolest thing along with the other guys, where she was around naked all the time because that's what the role called for with her scenes. But those guys would take off their clothes and stay naked as well to help her feel comfortable. Like they didn't want her to feel like she's the only one.
So they would just be on set naked.
Right,
Just
but-
be like, look, I'm naked.
But also the guy in the dark shirt, like he said that this movie had kind of scarred him because of, even though he wasn't doing anything real in terms of violence, it deterred him from wanting to act anymore because he said he was so scarred by the content.
It felt so
Yeah,
like
yeah, just kind of
genuine and real.
right. So, and maybe he got a lot of backlash from fans at the time who didn't know how to separate art from acting or whatever. But he seemed like a generally good dude, and it's kind of neat that those guys were looking out for her back then because the actress doesn't shy away from the film. She actually praises it in terms of what the director was trying to do, because the director had actually came across a scene similar to that when he found a girl coming out of the woods.
Oh,
So that made him, inspired him to do this.
By
Interesting.
local men. What follows is a relentless revenge mission that stunned even hardened grindhouse audiences. Director Mir Zarchi said the idea came from helping a real assault victim get to the police and seeing her
Oh, wow.
mistreated there. No
That's what I
studio
was just
wanted
saying,
it,
yeah.
so Zarchi rented theaters himself, keeping ticket sales. Critics tore it apart, with Roger Ebert calling it a vile bag of garbage. Yet it grossed over $5 million on
but
a
here's the
shoestring
thing:
budget.
like,
In some
Roger
countries,
Ebert's calling it a vile bag of garbage because of its context. That means it's a good movie because it's
You have to
evoking an
understand.
emotion.
Yeah, you have to understand. Roger Ebert was, and Siskel was guilty of this at times too. They're very pretentious, and unless it fits their narrative, this was the problem back then. That as much as I enjoyed watching them when they reviewed films, because I always found them kind of entertaining, it frustrated me because when it came to horror and stuff like that, these guys would
Because they
butcher
just want like
because Roger was also when it said that the Carpenter's The Thing sucked. Like
Did he?
they butchered the shit out of it. And now, but even though that it didn't do that well in the theaters, like that was the other thing too. Whenever people would go to film, they would sometimes watch Siskel and Ebert to see.
Yeah, they had their like TV show.
Yeah, so they were watching them and say, "Well, what should we go see?" Because and then if they badmouth something, that's why nowadays critics get kind of upset when the rest of us give our opinions, because now we're taking away some of that steam they had, that influence.
We're more. There's more of us,
right?
So it's like perfect example, like Rotten Tomatoes. We're like,
yeah, okay,
there's 8,000 reviews from the public and 100 from critics, and you kind of look at, okay, well, what does the tomato meter say?
Yeah, disparity. Yeah, and so like that. Once the internet allowed us to do this and express our own opinions, well, then it wasn't just relying on a couple of guys who like certain things with movies. And so it's not that they don't know movies; they know about cinema,
but they also have their own opinions and they have their own biases. So they
right.
Like he says something is not good because of the content.
Right.
Of yes, it's grotesque and it's horrible. That means you made a good movie. If you're invoking that kind of like personal reaction from a movie, that means it may not be the content that you want to watch, but it means that movie was made so well and so believable that you're like, okay, yeah, this was.
I mean, that's where we're at now, where a lot of the horror films we watch are all jump scares. Like, whereas stuff like this, as disturbing as it might be, that it makes you uncomfortable. That's like when I watched.
It makes you uncomfortable because it's real.
When I watched a Serbian film, that makes me uncomfortable.
That makes me uncomfortable too.
And I never want to watch it again. But I didn't mind watching because it did what its job was meant to do, is make me feel uncomfortable and dirty, and that's exactly what it did.
Can you pause for a minute?
What do you mean?
Like,
all right. So let's get back into it.
It was banned outright for decades. In the UK, it bounced on and off the banned list, with uncut versions only appearing much later. Its legacy is divisive. Some see it as exploitation at its ugliest, others as a raw tale of survival and revenge. Either way, it's one of the most infamous titles in 70s grindhouse history. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974.
Oh, I didn't realize that it was banned.
Massacre proved you don't need buckets of gore to terrify an audience. Following a group of friends who stumble into a rural nightmare run by the Leatherface family, the film's power comes from its suffocating atmosphere and unrelenting tension. Made for about $140,000, it went on to earn over $30 million in the U.S. alone. The MPAA refused an R rating, and several countries banned it outright. In the UK, the ban stuck for decades, and they even outlawed the word chainsaw from film titles during that period. Despite showing very little blood, the constant screaming, chaotic editing, and grimy look made it feel more brutal than most gore-heavy films. Hooper's low-budget ingenuity turned Texas Chainsaw into one of the most profitable independent films ever made, and the godfather of modern slashers. Many imitated it, but few matched its raw, nerve-shredding energy. Faces of Death, 1978. In an era where horror was already pushing Faces of Death dared to present itself as a documentary. Marketed
really?
as a
Okay, I'd
study
like
of
to
death
hear
around
that
the
was
world.
fake,
It mixed
because some of it
staged
was a little
scenes
too
with
much.
real footage of accidents, disasters, and animal attacks. The result? Outrage, bans, and an underground cult following. Director John Allen Schwartz spent around $450,000 making it. Special effects wizard Alan Apone, later of Scarface and Iron Man, handled the fake gore, which was convincing enough to fool many viewers. Authorities weren't amused. It was banned in the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, with possession of an uncut copy even considered a criminal offense in some places. Despite the controversy, or perhaps because of it, Faces of Death became a VHS legend. Bootlegs circulated in schoolyards, and midnight screenings sold out. The taboo of watching something so forbidden made it irresistible to many. It's not for everyone, but it's a prime example of how 70s exploitation could blur the line between fiction and reality in ways that still spark debate. Fight for Your Life, 1977. Even among grindhouse regulars, Fight for Your Life stood out as one of the most racially charged exploitation films ever made. The plot is simple but explosive. 3 escaped convicts invade the home of a black minister and hold his family hostage. What follows is a tense, hate-filled standoff that pushes every button imaginable. Banned outright in the UK in 1981, it was labeled so offensive that the British Board of Film Classification
So
refused
offensive.
to even consider
Oh, yeah,
cuts.
it's been using
An
every
uncut
slur
VHS briefly
imaginable.
surfaced in 1982 before being yanked during the height of the video nasty crackdown. Other countries weren't any more forgiving, and even in the US, some theaters wouldn't touch it. Director Robert Endelson said he made it for audiences, not critics, and he succeeded in provoking a visceral reaction.
What
The
is this
villains are
called?
irredeemable,
Fight for
the
your
violence
life.
is ugly, and there's
Now I
no
wanna see if we
comic
can find
relief
this
to
tonight,
soften the
'cause-
blows.
Not
Quentin
because it's
Tarantino
so-
once called it one of the meanest exploitation films he'd ever seen. For those who can stomach
Mainly
it,
because
it's a
I
raw
wanna
reminder
see
of just
how
how far
bad it
70s
is.
cinema
Yeah.
was
Like,
willing to go
do
to
you know
test
what?
its
I'm
viewers.
not
Super
like
Vixens
encouraging
1975.
racism,
Russ Meyer
but
was
This one
already
I've
a
never heard of
legend in
either.
exploitation cinema, but Super Vixens might be his most outrageous creation. Part violent road movie, part
Recognize
cartoon
him.
come to life. It follows Clint, a gas station attendant framed for murder, who meets a series of over-the-top women, all played by the same actress in different
Oh, that's
costumes
cool.
and wigs. Meyer financed the $100,000 budget himself and somehow convinced 20th Century Fox's indie division to distribute it, despite the X rating. The gamble paid off.
See,
It
this
grossed
is
around
like-
$17 million
What year did it come out?
worldwide, an
80
incredible
what?
return
This
for
one's
a film
75,
this
I think.
wild. One of the most
These
notorious
types of
moments
movies
involves a police
are your
officer
perfect
killing a woman in a
VHS movies.
bathtub, followed by
You
electrocution.
remember
A scene
going
Tarantino
into
has praised
before,
as one of the
like-
most powerful in
Before Blockbuster, before like the movie theaters and the movie distribution people really got into like video stores, these are the type of movies that you got.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like you might have like a here or there type of thing, but the VHS stores, they were really meant for these smaller independent films, and we watched that doc about the ones that
Well,
got
during this time in the 70s, it was mostly drive-ins,
Mhm.
and even then, you also had this kind of film. If it had an X-ray, and probably ended up in the porn circuit, even if it
Mhm.
wasn't straight porn, it probably ended up there.
It would only go in those types of theaters. Yeah, you're right.
So, but by the early 80s, you're right. The early blockbusters or whatever, they would actually
Like the
have
independent,
these. Right. Because, back then, if it didn't get pulled right away, they would show up. Because that's how I saw the Faces of Death stuff through VHS in the early 80s. So when they had like Faces of Death 1, 2, and 3, I was able to look at them. I was like, oh, wow, okay. That was before I knew they were faked in half of them. But
I'm glad that they're fake, though. I am happy
70s
to
cinema.
hear that.
Meyer described the film as a violent adult cartoon, and that's exactly what it feels like.
Dune buggy.
Exaggerated characters, lurid colors, and bursts of shocking brutality. Love it or hate it, Super Vixens proved that in the 70s, audacity could be a box office goldmine. Caged Heat, 1974.
heard
I've
of
heard
this.
Before
of it.
Jonathan
Yeah.
Demme won Oscars for The Silence of the Lambs, he cut his teeth on Caged Heat, a women in prison exploitation flick made for Roger Corman's New World Pictures. The setup
minute.
is pure.
We watched that doc
grindhouse.
about
A
Roger
group
Corman,
of inmates
and-
endure a
and-
sadistic warden and a corrupt doctor until they've had enough and plan a breakout. Shot in abandoned asylums around Los Angeles, the film cost around $180,000 and grossed over $2 million, a massive profit for Corman's outfit. Demme, working with no budget, edited it himself under a fake name. The result
wow.
is campy, raw, and brimming with the expected genre staples: power struggles, betrayal, and explosive payback. While it was dismissed by mainstream critics at the time, Caged Heat has since earned a cult
Pretty sure
following,
this is on
even
Tubi
getting
or
praise
something.
from Francis Ford Coppola as one of the best exploitation films ever made. It's proof that in the 70s, even future Hollywood heavyweights had to start by getting their hands dirty in the grindhouse circuit. Bloodsucking Freaks, 1976.
I've heard this.
Few
Yeah.
titles match their content as perfectly as Bloodsucking Freaks. Set in a grimy off-Broadway theater, it follows a sadistic magician and his assistant who kidnap people and perform grotesque acts for a paying audience. When it was released, critics loathed it. The MPAA slapped on an X rating, and several U.S. cities banned it outright. But word of mouth kept it alive in grindhouses and midnight screenings, where audiences were either laughing nervously or sitting in stunned silence. Made for just $100,000, it later found a second life when Trauma Entertainment picked it up in the 2000s.
There you go.
There you
Adding a
go.
commentary
Boy,
track
Kaufman.
from director Joel Reed and even Eli Roth. Some argue it has a layer of social commentary buried under the outrageous gore and cruelty, but for most viewers, it's simply one of the most over-the-top exploitation films ever made. If the goal was to shock, Bloodsucking Freaks succeeded in ways few films have matched. Black Mama, White Mama, 1973.
Heard of
Take
this.
two rival prisoners, chain them together, and throw
Pam
them into
Grier.
a jungle war zone. That's Black Mama, White Mama in a nutshell.
Dude,
Pam
that's a
Grier
chick that
plays
I,
a tough,
at
streetwise
least up
inmate,
until
while
like
Margaret
the
Markov
90s when she
is
was
the
doing
political
Jackie
prisoner
Brown,
she's
never-
forced to
never
escape with.
aged.
They hate each other, but survival means cooperation. Shot in the Philippines on a shoestring budget, the film
Does
was
look
part
like
of
it's shot in
New
the
World Pictures'
Philippines.
push into overseas locations where production costs were rock bottom. The climate was
Oh, wow.
brutal, the stunts were improvised, and Grier reportedly did many of her own action scenes. The mix of prison drama, chase thriller, and jungle warfare gave it a fresh twist compared to other women in prison films of the era. In the US, it played to grindhouse crowds hungry for action and attitude, and it delivered both. While it didn't make massive box office numbers, it became a cult hit on VHS, thanks to Grier's commanding screen presence and the constant, unpredictable danger of the plot. It's a perfect example of how 70s exploitation loved to mash genres into one chaotic ride.
That's right. That's
Ms.
Sid
45,
Haig.
1979. Abel Ferrara's Ms. 45
Oh, this
is
is
a
a good
gritty,
film.
grimy revenge thriller
I've never seen
set
this.
in New York's
really
crumbling
good.
streets at the end of the 70s. Zoe Lund plays Thana, a mute seamstress who becomes a vigilante after being pushed past her breaking point. With no dialogue, Lund communicates everything through expression, making her transformation into a cold, calculating avenger even more chilling.
That's
Shot
kinda
guerrilla
cool.
style without permits, the film captured the real decay and danger of late 70s Manhattan. The budget was tiny, and many of the extras were just people on the
She does a
street
great
who
job
wandered
of
into the frame.
portraying the
Ferrara, under a
innocence,
fake
and
name,
then
even plays one of the
even
attackers
when she's
himself.
killing
While it
people, it's
technically
like,
came out right at
just
the
kinda
turn of the
feel for her.
decade,
Yeah,
it's pure
'cause
70s
it's all this
in
trauma and
style
PTSD
and
that she's going
raw,
through.
unapologetic, and unapologetically urban. Though heavily cut in some markets, it gained a loyal cult audience
What's
on
this
home
called?
video.
MS-45
Miss 45 remains one of Ferrara's most powerful works, proving that exploitation can carry genuine artistry without losing its edge.
I wonder if looking for
see
Mrs.
that.
Jaws of
Goodbar is in
Death,
this.
1976. Capitalizing
There
on
it
the
is.
shark
It's gonna get
craze
you, baby.
after Jaws, Mako. The Jaws of Death took a different approach, making the shark the good guy. Richard Jekyll stars as a man who can communicate with sharks telepathically, defending them from exploitation by humans. Naturally, the humans don't listen, and the body count rises. Filmed in Florida with real sharks, the production leaned on the novelty of underwater stunt work and the animal connection. The plot might sound strange, but the film had an environmental streak rare for exploitation at the time, portraying the sharks as victims rather than monsters. While it never matched Jaws in box office, it carved out its own niche on the drive-in circuit. Today, it's remembered as one of the weirder entries in the
I love
70s
that
animal
when we
attack
talk about
boom.
these movies,
Park.
like the drive-in back in the day was its own thing.
Mhm.
Like you didn't get the big budget
Mhm.
main movies in the drive-in, like, and there's not a lot of drive-ins left, as we know. I don't even think there's any in Delaware, honestly. And the
No,
one,
there's not. Like, and the funny thing is, I was driving around when I was with you shopping yesterday, like looking at some of the farmland. I'm like sitting there going, man, you could really put a drive-in right here. Yeah, because they have the room, but like no one really thinks of it. I mean, it is a lot of work and you have to be able to have a demand for it. Like, but I think that if you were smart enough about how you promoted it, you could get people to get
I know
involved.
there used to be drive-ins around here, and I also know there was one right outside of Ocean City for a while, and I remember like being younger driving to Ocean City with my parents, and it still had the big marquee like billboard, and you could kind of see it behind like trees and stuff. I think just life in general, you know, nowadays like you were just saying, oh, we might be able to find that on Tubi or find this or find that. You didn't have that back in the day. So if you wanted to see some of these raunchy movies, you had to stay up late and go to a midnight screening at some little theater, or you would have to hit up the drive-in. It's just like a different time, and it's hard because now the drive-ins, you would have to get the big movie in order to keep it alive. You'd be like, oh, this is the biggest movie this week, I have to get this movie, kind of.
Part
Yeah.
revenge story, part ecological fable, and all exploitation attitude. Welcome Home, Brother Charles, 1975.
Never heard that
Jamal
one.
Fanaka's
either.
Welcome Home. Brother Charles is one of the most unusual entries in the blaxploitation wave. It follows Charles, a man wrongly imprisoned who,
This is
after
so
his
70s.
release,
Look at these
seeks
outfits.
revenge on the corrupt officials
lived
who
it.
put him there. What sets it apart is its jaw-dropping twist on how Charles carries out that revenge, a detail that became the film's infamous calling card. Made while Fanaka was still a student at UCLA, the film was
Oh,
shot for
cool.
very little money, but still managed to get theatrical distribution. It mixes gritty social commentary with pure grindhouse sensationalism, touching on themes of police corruption, racial injustice, and survival in an unforgiving world. It wasn't a massive hit, but it earned enough of a reputation to keep Fanaka working in the industry. Today, it's remembered as a bizarre blend of serious intent and outrageous execution, exactly the kind of combination that kept 70s exploitation cinema unpredictable. Mansion of the Doomed, 1976.
I've
Charles
heard this.
Band's
I've seen
Mansion
this,
of the
actually.
Doomed is a low-budget horror gem that feels like a grim
Who is
fairy
it?
tale gone wrong. Richard Basehart plays a brilliant but unhinged eye surgeon who becomes obsessed with
I didn't realize it
restoring
was
his
this old. I
daughter's
thought it was
sight
80s.
after an accident blinds her. His solution? Kidnap people, remove their eyes, and transplant them into her. Shot quickly
Oh,
to keep
wow.
costs down, the film used stark lighting and claustrophobic sets to amplify its sense of dread. The victims are kept alive in a dark basement, stumbling blindly while the doctor searches for better replacements. For a small movie, the atmosphere is surprisingly intense, and the practical effects are unnerving without relying on excess gore.
I don't
While it
know.
flew under
Take it
the
or leave it.
radar
It
compared to
doesn't
flashier
resonate with
exploitation
me yet.
titles, Mansion of the Doomed gained a cult following on VHS for its creepy premise and disturbing imagery. It's proof that 70s exploitation didn't need huge shocks to leave an impression. Sometimes a single twisted idea was enough. Sisters, 1972. Before Carrie and Dressed to Kill, Brian De Palma delivered Sisters,
Oh, wow.
a tense psychological thriller that blends Hitchcock-style suspense with
that's what's her
70s
face.
grit. Margot Kidder plays a model
Yeah.
with a dark secret involving her twin sister, a secret that bursts into violence when a reporter witnesses a brutal murder in her apartment. Shot for about $500,000, the film made clever
Oh, yeah, I
use of
think I've seen
split-screen
this.
effects to heighten the tension, a De Palma trademark. Critics praised its stylish direction, but were startled by its graphic moments, which were uncommon in mainstream thrillers at the time. While it didn't face outright bans, Sisters pushed boundaries by mixing art house aesthetics with exploitation-level shocks. It's a reminder that during the 70s, the line between serious cinema and grindhouse thrills was often razor-thin and sometimes non-existent. The Candy Snatchers, 1973. The Candy
I've not
Snatchers
heard of
starts
that
like
one.
a
Me either.
straightforward crime thriller
These are all
and slowly
interesting.
mutates into one of the nastiest exploitation films of its decade. Three criminals
Nasty.
kidnap a teenage girl and bury her alive in a coffin, planning to ransom her to her wealthy stepfather. But greed, betrayal, and incompetence spiral everything out
That
of
looks like the
control.
kid from
Shot in Los
Lost by the
Angeles, the
Cemetery.
film had a gritty, almost documentary feel. Its outdoor locations, unpolished look, and unflinching violence made it stand out. There's no glamour here. The kidnappers are desperate and messy. The victim is genuinely terrified, and the heroes never show up. The ending is pure gut punch, leaving audiences stunned and critics divided. It didn't get
No,
much
I might wanna
theatrical
see
play,
this.
but became a cult hit decades later when home video finally gave it the audience it deserved. This is the kind of movie that makes you realize 70s exploitation didn't care about happy endings. It cared about impact. Don't Go
It's
in the
true.
House, 1979. If
Yeah, I've seen
Psycho
that.
had been remade in the grimy late 70s, it might look like Don't Go in the House. Dan
Oh.
Grimaldi plays a socially awkward man who, after years of abuse from his mother, begins luring women into a specially built metal room and setting them on fire with a flamethrower. Shot in New
What?
Jersey for a small budget, the film leaned heavily on its disturbing set pieces. The metallic kill room, with chains hanging from the walls, became its most iconic image. The MPAA slapped it with an X rating until cuts were made, and it was banned outright in some countries. While it borrowed from the slasher formula that was gaining momentum, its focus on psychological breakdown and fire-based horror
is this
gave it
called?
a unique edge.
Don't Go in the
Today, it
House.
stands as one of the most unsettling lone killer movies of its
keeping
era,
notes? 'Cause
proof
I
that late
wanna watch
70s
one of these
exploitation
after
could still
this.
shock
Okay.
audiences jaded by years of on-screen violence. The Witch Who Came from the Sea, 1976.
Seen
This
this, I didn't
surreal,
really
unsettling
like it,
film
though.
from director Matt Cimber tells the story of Molly, a woman whose traumatic past fuels a series of violent acts against men she sees as predatory. Played with eerie calm by Millie Perkins, Molly is both sympathetic and terrifying, a character who keeps you guessing until the end. Shot on the cheap, the movie's dreamlike quality
Shot on
comes
the
from
cheap.
washed-out
I like that.
cinematography and disjointed editing, giving it the feel of a waking nightmare. While it doesn't rely on constant action, its bursts of violence are jarring enough to have gotten it caught up in the UK's video nasty panic, where it was banned for years. Critics at the time didn't know what to make of it. Some saw it as exploitation trash, others as an artful meditation on trauma and violence. It's since been reappraised as one of the
Interesting.
strangest, most original entries in the 70s exploitation canon, proving that the genre wasn't afraid to get weird. Deathbed, The Bed That Eats,
Never heard that
1977.
either.
It sounds like a
Saw that
joke,
more
but
recently.
Deathbed,
Is it
The Bed
It's
That
actually a
Eats,
bed to
is a
eat you.
real film,
What?
and that's exactly what makes it legendary. The premise is right there in the title. A cursed bed consumes anyone who lies on it, dissolving
Yeah,
them
no.
in a strange,
This looks
bubbling
dumb.
acid. It's absurd, eerie, and
why
completely
you're number
unlike anything
21.
else from the
These are
70s
dumb.
exploitation scene. Shot in Detroit for an almost non-existent budget, the movie mixes horror with surreal humor. The effects are primitive but imaginative, including the use of thick, colored liquids to simulate the bed's digestive process. It was never widely released in the
Oh.
70s, instead circulating quietly in the underground tape trading world years later. What makes
Tape
Deathbed
trading
special
world.
isn't just the ridiculous plot, but the fact that it treats the premise with straight-faced sincerity. It's an oddball reminder that the 70s grindhouse circuit welcomed just about any idea, no matter how strange, as long as
My
it could grab your
tiny
attention.
head.
Frightmare, 1974. From the
Seen
UK's
this.
Pete Walker, Frightmare is one of the creepiest British exploitation films of the decade. It follows a seemingly harmless elderly couple living in the countryside. The truth? The wife has a habit of killing and eating
seemingly
people who come to
harmless
their home.
couple
Walker was known
living
for
in the
pushing British
countryside.
censorship to its limit, and this one tested every boundary. The violence is grim, but the real unease comes from the slow reveal, the idea that someone so outwardly normal could be hiding something monstrous. While it didn't get banned outright, it faced heavy criticism from the British press, who saw it as part of a wave of depraved horror movies corrupting the youth. Over time, it's become a cult
Corrupting the
favorite,
youth.
showing that not all exploitation needed chaos and noise. Sometimes quiet menace was more disturbing. House of Whipcord, 1974.
How many
Another
is
Pete
he
Walker
going
shocker,
through?
House of Whipcord
Yeah, it
takes
told
the
me
women in
21,
prison
but I guess
setup
he's
and
got-
twists
He's a
it
liar.
into a tale of moral fanaticism. A young model is lured to a remote estate where a retired prison governor and his equally rigid wife run their own private detention center for immoral women. Filmed for very little money, Walker leaned on
Immoral
stark,
women.
almost gothic visuals to make the story more unsettling. There's no supernatural angle here, just human cruelty and an unshakable belief that they're doing the right thing. It stirred controversy in Britain for its unflinching treatment of punishment and abuse, but also gained praise from some critics for its suspense and atmosphere. As a final entry on this list, House of Whipcord shows how 70s exploitation could work without constant action by building a chilling world you wouldn't want to visit. The 1970s were
I don't
a
even know if I
wild
wanna see
frontier
this.
for
It
filmmaking,
looks
a
kinda
decade
boring.
when low budgets, bold ideas,
Yeah, I
and
recognize the
complete
older woman
disregard for the
from the
rules
scene
created
previously.
movies
She
that
was in
couldn't
another
exist
film.
in any
She did
other
a pretty
time.
good job in
Some were
that, but-
brutal, some were bizarre, and some were just
I know I've
plain
seen this, I
dangerous
just
to watch.
probably don't remember
Whether
because I wasn't
banned,
that
protested, or
impressed with it.
whispered about in midnight
it just looks
screenings,
really
these
boring.
films didn't just push the limits, they tore them down. Which of these notorious titles would you dare to sit through? Drop your answer in the comments, hit subscribe for more deep dives, and keep exploring the wild side of cinema.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's actually 23.
Not 21.
Films.
It's a lie.
But yeah, I'm surprised there was a couple of films they didn't mention, but I don't know what his criteria really was. Like maybe it was lesser known films. I don't know, but
It just basically said grindhouse films, like, or exploitation films.
yeah.
I don't know. Like, what do you think is a modern type exploitation film that we might have seen in the last 10, 20 years? Because in 2000 and beyond,
Let me.
give me an idea. You're going to take a little peek.
Well, I'm just curious because what we think is exploitation, other people may not. So, okay, so this would make a little bit of sense. So,
Okay.
So Devil's Rejects could be considered a modern exploitation in some sense
Okay.
because of how dark it is as far as zombies stuff.
Mhm.
Again, we have basically a reboot of I Spit on Your Grave from the same director, I think in 2010. But I don't even know if that one really pushed it as much as the original.
The original was in the 70s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Django Unchained.
Yes,
Great
Django.
Changer. Yeah. Let's see. 2020's exploitation films. I'm looking for something darker.
Black Snake Moan.
Yeah,
one that
I mean, I guess, but like again, like that probably would have been a little bit more if they pushed it more. Like that was probably my surprise is that as good as Jackson and Christina Ricci were in that, like they didn't push it as far as
As you thought it would go.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course they were trying to ride that line because otherwise they would have been shut down. Because I think Ricci was like the teenage white girl, and you had
Because she wasn't a teenager like in real life, but they
No,
were
but
portraying.
you're right. Okay, so here's a list that
Okay.
Rolling Stone did. Let me get out of this. Crank, 2006.
Jason Statham?
Yep, they consider that somehow. Well, they call it a hitman exploitation, but that's not what I'm looking for.
Hitmansploitation. Okay.
I Saw the Devil. That's actually a really good one. Yes.
Okay.
So that's, I believe, a Korean horror film, which is highly disturbing. Nymphomaniac 1 and 2. Yes,
Yeah.
it's more of like the sex stuff, which.
Oh God, what was the one that I said no, I will never, and then I watched it and it was like, oh God, they were like fucking each other, and it was like the dog. I don't know. You'll figure it out in a minute because it was like
Human Centipede.
that. Yes, and that's another one that I
won't watch it.
No.
But I know enough about it to say.
Yeah. No.
Oh, they say John Wick. No.
That's not exploitation.
I mean, again, they're calling some of this like hitman exploitation, which I get, but I'm talking like Itchy the Killer. Yes. Yes, definitely. Oh, there you go. Black Snake Moan.
Okay.
So they definitely put that in there. Bais Moye, I think I've heard of this. And this features, if I'm correct, one of the porn girls I like, but she committed suicide at some point. Yeah, it was a weird situation with her.
Oh, that movie that we watched, it was a Jason movie.
Oh, The Raid. Okay.
I hate saying it like that because I don't want, but it was like one of
Showgirls could be considered a little bit.
but it's not like
But it doesn't push kids. Now that one,
yeah.
that one, yes. I would say but that's still like 90s. Battle Royale, yep. I would consider that. Spring Breakers. I never got around to watching that one.
I don't.
It's James Franco and Selena Gomez and them, so I don't know. But yeah, that'd be kind of considered. I mean, I think you'd have to kind of dive more underground, like some of the stuff that Tony and I watch when it comes to like Terrifier could almost be considered, even though
and
it's
now it's got a cult following.
Yeah, it's like an extreme horror film, but it just depends on your interpretation or definition. Like a Serbian film, I think came out in 2007.
Is it a Serbian film? The one that I'm thinking about?
I don't think you
Or-
watched it though.
No, it's another film. It was a Jason film. And it was
Jason, what film? Statham?
no, our old roommate Jason.
Oh,
And you guys
it's probably Sallow.
that must be is it
That's
the-
why they didn't. That's a '70s film. I'm surprised they didn't mention that.
No, it wasn't a 70s. It might have maybe it was a 70s film. But it was like I think I saw it and I'm like, nope.
Well, he had a couple of David Lynch films. So one was Eraserhead, but that was still '70s, and then there was the. I'm trying to remember the name.
Naked Lunch.
Yes.
And then I was like, nope.
That was the
But
other
there was
one.
another one where it was like at the end it was like it was like they were raping like
Serbian film.
that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah. So the
And I was like, nope.
so the father ends up raping his son, whereas his brother ends up raping his wife. Because
Yeah.
his brother had this like obsession with his wife. So that was just like
It was a little too much for me.
I
And
can't remember how it even ended. I know I would have been like
I just
killing my
remember
brother.
because they were like blindfolded and
Well, he's up on drugs and everything
Mhm.
else, and so he's being forced to do all these acts because he was going for money, but they tricked him. It was all like the snuff films, and that's what the whole idea was. The guys that were filmed, because remember at the end, he kills all of them. Like
see,
in
I didn't watch like all of it because there's many times where we're watching.
and we saw
these-
like the lenient version because there was a baby rape scene in there. So yeah, that's clearly a modern exploitation.
it was a little there. It's hard
It's
to be.
rough.
It's hard to be a little too much for me because I like pushing boundaries.
For me, like I can take just about anything, but that.
But baby rape is where you draw the line.
Well, just that whole movie is just dark. I can't stand it. Like, I recommend people check it out once if you're a cinematography buff and you don't mind having shocks. But like, it's not like I can't even give it a rating. Like, it's so disgusting.
it's yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, upcoming content tomorrow, Silver Screen Savants with Olvin. Got Commando coming. Arnold
Commando, like
Schwarzenegger.
Arnie
Yep.
Commando,
Yep.
like
Yep.
Mhm.
And then later in the week, retro movie show with Kevin Lambert. We have Back to the Future franchise that we're discussing.
don't know how much I love Back to the Future.
Hmm.
You don't know how much I love Back to the Future.
Then on Friday, a couple of things going on. 1 p.m. Eastern, Into the Darkness, Kevin Lambert channel again. Me, Kevin, and I guess a few other panels, we're going to do a discussion on The Shining and Dr. Sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, Nick and I will be together again doing our best albums of 2025. So that's going to be a lot of fun handing that out. If you haven't checked it out, I did a couple of game streams today. I did Diablo 4 Season 11. And then I also did some Final Fantasy 16, which I just started. So that was a lot of fun, actually. I was enjoying
So
that.
you bought a new game?
Hmm.
Somebody's got some new gaming.
But yeah, I'll try to keep people up to date on some of the gaming stuff a little bit. But thank you for checking this out.
Yes.
And we appreciate all the support.
We take notes. We took notes
Yeah.
and get back
Got
to
the
us.
list. Got the list.
Take the list. Get back.
And if there wasn't anything on the list, let us know in the comments. Is there anything that they missed or we missed that we didn't talk about that might be worth checking out from their descriptions?
Yeah, totally.
All right. See you later. Enjoy the rest of your evening and ciao.
Just stay quiet